Welcome to TalkTickers. We cut through the noise of earnings calls to bring you what really matters.
And today we're diving deep into the recent Vaxart earnings call, pulling out the key details.
Right. So let's start with the top line numbers. What did the results look like for Q1 2025?
Well, the big headline was revenue. It jumped significantly to $20.9 million.
Wow. Compared to what, last year?
Just $2.2 million in the same period last year. So a really substantial increase.
Okay. And what's behind that big jump?
It's primarily almost entirely driven by that Barda contract, the one awarded back in June 2024.
Ah, the COVID vaccine funding. Makes sense. How's their cash position looking?
Pretty solid. They ended the quarter with $41.9 million in cash equivalents, and investments.
Okay. And are they managing that cash carefully?
Seems like it. They mentioned more cost cutting, including workforce reductions, belt tightening, really.
Which should help their runway, I imagine.
Exactly. Their current projections now take their cash runway into the first quarter of 2026.
Good to know. Any other major headlines from the quarter?
Yeah, change in the C-suite. Phil Lee resigned as CFO for personal reasons.
Oh, okay. Who's stepping in?
Drumgerman. He's described as a seasoned biotech finance executive, so seems like experienced hands.
Right. Okay, so decent results driven by Barda, managing costs, new CFO. Let's get into the pipelines. The COVID program is obviously key with that Barda funding. What's the latest?
The big news there is that the stop work order on the huge 10,000 participant part of their phase 2B trial, it's been lifted.
Oh, that is big news. They must have had some productive talks.
Yeah, they mentioned positive dialogue with Barda and HHS. So that trial is back on track. It's the one testing their oral pill targeting the KP2 variant.
Okay, KP2. And how's that trial structured?
So this large study compares Vaxart's oral vaccine directly against an mRNA comparator, also going after KP2.
Head to head?
Exactly. And they'll follow participants for 12 months, looking at safety, efficacy, immunogenicity, the whole package.
And what about that smaller cohort they had running, the 400 participant one?
Right, the Sentinel cohort, that one's still ongoing, following the protocol. It's testing an older XBB targeted pill against an mRNA XBB comparator.
So different targets there. What are they hoping to learn from that smaller group?
It's mostly about safety data, but they do expect some initial, immunogenicity and maybe efficacy data after the 12-month safety follow-up wraps up.
When would that be?
The follow-up ends in December 2025. Then they need time for analysis after that.
Got it. So the main event is this restarting 10,000 participant study. How quickly can they get that moving again?
They're already on it. Reactivating clinical trial sites, coordinating shipments. Looks like 20 sites are active now.
And screening participants.
Yep, about 199 people were in screening as of the call. They estimate it'll take roughly 5 to 6 months to get everyone enrolled.
Okay, ambitious but doable, and the funding is secure for this.
Yes, that existing Barda contract is still in place. It provides up to $460.7 million potentially.
And Vaxart's angle here, their big hope, is the oral delivery.
Right. They really emphasize the potential for mucosal immunity, simulating protection right where the virus enters the body.
In the nose and throat lining.
Exactly. Plus, it's an option for people who just don't want injections.
Yeah, needle aversion is definitely a thing. Okay, let's switch gears. What about their norovirus program? Any movement there?
Absolutely. Big step forward here, too. Enrollment is complete for their phase 1 trial.
Okay, phase 1 complete. What's this trial looking at?
It's an open-label, dose-ranging study, basically comparing their newer second-generation oral norovirus candidate against the older first-gen one.
Ah, an internal bake-off. How many people?
60 participants. They're looking at safety, of course, but also those key immune markers.
The ones that correlated with protection before.
Precisely. Things like functional antibodies in the blood and IgA responses in fecal samples. They found those were important in the earlier challenge study.
And when do we get to see the results?
Top-line data is expected around mid-2025, so pretty soon, actually.
What would a win look like for them in this phase 1?
Well, ideally, you'd want to see the new constructs trending better, performing stronger than the old ones on those immune markers. They mentioned compelling preclinical data supporting that possibility.
Okay. And if the phase 1 data is positive, what's next?
That could pave the way for a phase 2B safety and an immunogenicity study, maybe starting the second half of this year.
That's quick.
Yeah, potentially. Followed by talks with the FDA, and then maybe a phase 3 trial kicking off as early as 2026.
That sounds like it would require significant capital.
Definitely. They acknowledge that advancing the norovirus program into those later stages will likely need a partner or some other kind of funding.
are they looking?
They said they're actively pursuing those options.
Makes sense. Partnerships are crucial. Okay, one more program they highlighted, avian flu. That seems topical.
Very topical. And they have some quite encouraging preclinical results there.
Oh, yeah. What did they find?
Their new avian flu vaccine candidate showed 100% protection against death in a ferret challenge model.
100%. Against which strain?
It was the clade 2.3.4.4b strain. And importantly, none of the placebo animals survived the challenge.
Wow, that's stark. Preclinical, yes, but still impressive.
It is. They expect to publish this data in a peer-reviewed journal soon.
How are they thinking about this program strategically?
They see it as a real potential opportunity for partnerships and a business development. And they also pointed out how fast they moved it into preclinical studies, kind of showcasing their platform speed.
Right, platform validation. Okay, let's circle back to the financials just for a moment. That BARDA contract, $460.7 million potential. How much is actually available now?
Currently, $240.1 million is available for payment under the contract terms.
And how much cash have they actually received from BARDA so far?
As of the end of March, they'd received $85.6 million in cash payments.
Okay, and where's that money going? Mostly the COVID trial.
Yeah, the bulk of it pays vendors for that big phase 2B study. Some covers overhead, and Vaxart also gets a fee, which ups their cash runway.
Got it. They also mentioned an ATM offering, and at the market.
Right, they filed for one back in March. It gives them the option, not the obligation, to sell up to $50 million worth of shares directly into the market over time.
Have they used it?
No, not as of the call. They specifically said they think the stock is undervalued right now and they don't want to raise money at the current price. No equity financing since the last report.
Okay, holding off for potentially better prices. That leads us to the final big topic, the reverse stock split proposal. What's the story there?
The main driver, really the only driver mentioned, is regaining compliance with NASDAQ's minimum bid price rule. You know, the $1 requirement.
Right, to avoid getting delisted.
Exactly. That's proposal number 2 for the shareholder meeting on May 21st.
What are the risks if they do get delisted?
Well, it usually means moving to the OTC markets. That typically means lower liquidity, harder to trade shares, which can hurt the stock price.
And institutional investors.
They often can't or won't invest in OTC stocks. Plus, you could lose analyst coverage. It's generally not seen as a positive development.
So the split is framed as necessary medicine to stay on the main exchange. What kind of ratio are they considering? The proposal allows quite a range, right?
Up to 1 for 50 is proposed, yeah. But the board indicated their current thinking is to pick a ratio that's just high enough to get back over that $1 threshold, not necessarily the maximum.
So the minimum needed, essentially.
That seems to be the intention. They also mentioned NASDAQ usually doesn't talk about extensions until after the deadline passes, which is June 30th. This split proposal is part of their compliance plan submitted for the extension they're seeking.
So staying on NASDAQ is the priority because of liquidity, investor base, research coverage.
Right. They argue it's in the best interest of the company and the shareholders.
Okay, so wrapping up the investor perspective here. Lifting the COVID trial hold is clearly positive. Norovirus moving forward keeps that potential alive, maybe attracts a partner. Avian flu looks promising preclinically.
And they're managing cash, trying to extend that runway. The reverse split is a necessary step in their view to maintain the NASDAQ benefits. Lots of moving parts.
Definitely. All right, let's shift gears to our outrageous but plausible trade ideas segment. Just spitballing here, folks. Remember, this is absolutely not financial advice.
Okay, here's one thought. You've got that really strong avian flu preclinical data, 100% protection. Public health concern is high. Maybe, just maybe. A long position in Vaxart.
Okay, better hedge it.
Yeah, hedge it. Pair it with a short position in, say, a big established injectable flu vaccine maker, or maybe a pharma ETF with exposure to them. The idea is, if Vaxart makes real progress here, it could disrupt that market. This is not financial advice.
Interesting. Disrupting the incumbents. Okay, I've got one too. Focusing on the norovirus program. Phase 1 data coming mid-year, actively seeking partners.
Right, potential catalysts.
So maybe a speculative long position in Vaxart leading into that data. If it's good and they announce a partnership with non-dilutive funding, that could be significant.
But risky if the data disappoints.
Exactly. So hedge that maybe with a small short on a broad biotech ETF like XBI, just to dampen general sector risk if things go south. Capture the specific upside potential, hopefully. This is not financial advice.
Yeah, managing that binary event risk, both interesting angles to think about.
Definitely some food for thought. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive on Vaxart's latest call. We hit the financials, the COVID program restart, norovirus progress, avian flu potential, and that reverse split rationale.
So lots to digest. What do you think about the potential for these oral vaccines? Is mucosal immunity the future? And how will that reverse split play out with investors? We encourage you, as always, to dig deeper yourself.
Thanks for tuning in to TalkTickers. We'll catch you on the next deep dive into the numbers.